Hello everyone and welcome back to Studify Success. We are back with the second part of control and coordination, which is another chapter of class 10th biology. In the previous part of this chapter, we have already covered the mechanism for control and coordination in animals. We started with neurons, then we did reflex actions, and we studied about the various parts of the brain as well. In this part, we'll start with the endocrine system in humans, and then we'll continue with the mechanisms of control and coordination in plants. So let's get started with the chapter, but you can access all the notes of this chapter in the description section, and for more study content you can always visit our website studifysuccess.com. So let's get started with the chapter with endocrine system in animals. So what is endocrine system? In the first part I told you that we have two types of systems which are basically controlling the control and coordination in our body. First is the nervous system, which includes the working of nerves. Second is the endocrine system. Endocrine system has something called the hormones which come into action and control our actions. Hormones are responsible for various movements, various actions which are going on in our body. So what are hormones? Hormones are chemical substances that act like messenger molecules in our body. They are released from one organ and then they flow through the blood to the target organ where they have to act. So hormones are basically chemical messengers which are moving throughout our body. These hormones are released by glands and then they reach some organs on which they act. So these glands from which the hormones are released and the organs together make up the endocrine system. So we have various hormones, and these are some important hormones which we will study in this chapter. We will start with adrenaline. Adrenaline is released by the adrenal glands which are present just above our kidneys. You can see here these small yellow patches over here are the adrenal glands. The adrenaline is like a flight or fight hormone which acts in emergency situations. For example, if the body is in some kind of trouble, if the person is in some kind of trouble, you have an animal in front of you, or there is some emergency, in that cases this hormone comes into play. It either rescues you or enables you to fight the situation. So this is the function of the adrenaline hormone. So coming to the next hormone, which is thyroxine. Thyroxine is released by the thyroid gland which is present in our throat. On our esophagus you can see a thyroid gland is present. What is the function of this thyroid gland? Thyroid gland releases thyroxine, and this thyroxine requires iodine for the release. That is why when iodine deficiency is there, so deficiency of thyroxine is also there, and it together leads to goiter, which is a disease, and you can see swelling in the neck in case of goiter. So this happens when there is deficiency of thyroxine hormone. What is the function of this thyroxine hormone? Thyroxine hormone regulates carbohydrate, protein and fat metabolism. Basically the metabolism of the nutrients, it regulates the metabolism. So this is the function of thyroxine, which requires iodine to function well. Next is the growth hormone, which is released by the pituitary. Pituitary is also called the master gland because pituitary not only releases hormones but pituitary acts as a stimulant. It releases various hormones which act on other organs to release some other hormones. For example, you can see pituitary is present in our brain. So this pituitary, for example, has to act on thyroid gland. So pituitary sends a message or a signal to the thyroid gland to start releasing thyroxine. So then thyroid gland starts releasing thyroxine. So pituitary also acts like a master gland because it controls the actions of other glands as well. Apart from controlling the actions of other gland, it also secretes the growth hormone which regulates growth and development of the body, as the name suggests. The deficiency of growth hormone results in dwarfism or short-sightedness. Next is insulin, which is released from pancreas. Pancreas, as I have told you, is a leaf-like organ which is present just below the stomach. Here it is present just below the stomach. So pancreas release insulin which controls the blood sugar levels in our body. So if there is deficiency or increase or decrease in insulin levels, then there is change in sugar levels as well. That is why the amount of insulin is to be controlled, and this often leads to diabetes, which is very commonly seen in a lot of adults. This is due to the improper release of the insulin hormone by the pancreas. The next hormone is a sexual hormone which promotes the secondary sexual characters and our sexual development. So that is controlled by these two hormones, which is testosterone and estrogen. Testosterone controls the development of secondary sexual characters like the voice, beard, etc. in males, and estrogen controls the secondary sexual characters and sexual development in females. What do you mean by sexual development in females? Means the development of ovaries, the development of uterus and all the sexual organs, whereas in males the development of testes and sperm production is controlled by testosterone. Testosterone is released by the testes and estrogen is released by the ovary in females. So these are the 5 different types of hormones which are seen and which are very essential for the functioning of the human body. So let's move ahead with the feedback mechanism. Now what is the feedback mechanism? The timing and amount of hormone released are regulated by the feedback mechanism. Now what happens? A hormone cannot be released continuously in the body. There should be a time when hormone release should be increased or should be decreased or should be stopped. All this is controlled by the feedback mechanism. The timing and the amount of hormone release is regulated by the feedback mechanism. Now how is it regulated? We are seeing an example of the insulin hormone which was released by the pancreas. So supposing that sugar levels are high in the blood right now, and that is detected by the cells of the pancreas because pancreas release insulin. So that is detected by the cells of the pancreas. Hence, to control that sugar level, these cells produce more insulin, and then the sugar levels are controlled. Then again these cells of the pancreas sense that okay, now the sugar levels are fine, so they stop producing this excess insulin and now normal insulin is produced. So this is how hormone production is controlled by the organs, and all this mechanism is called the feedback mechanism. This is the feedback mechanism which goes on in human beings. Moving ahead with coordination in plants. Now we have seen how hormones and nervous system together control the control and coordination in human beings or in animals. Now what happens in plants? Firstly, plants do not have any nervous system or any muscles which help them in control and coordination. Plants have different ways of coordination in them. Plants sense their external environment and according to that they respond. So plant shows 2 different types of movements or growth. So firstly, growth dependent movements are there, that the movements which are dependent on the plant growth, and some movements are independent of the plant growth. So let's start with the second one. There is a plant which is called the touch me not plant. This is the plant and the name of the plant is touch me not plant. Whenever we touch this plant, as you can see in this picture, whenever we touch the leaves of this plant, the leaves of the plant fold and roll downwards. They start drooping. So how is this happening? There is no growth happening in this, but there is a certain movement happening, that when the plant is touched, the leaves droop and the leaves roll downwards. This is being done by growth independent movements. Such movements are growth independent movements, that is, they do not depend on the growth. They are depending on some external stimuli which is triggering them to occur. Now what about the growth dependent movements? These movements occur due to growth. The reason behind these movements is growth. For example, in germination, the shoot or the stem grows upwards and the root grows downwards. So this movement is being triggered or being stimulated by growth. Growth is occurring, and that is why the shoots are growing upwards and the roots are growing downwards. Such movements are growth dependent movements, and these are directional movements, that is they occur only in one direction. Either the shoots will move upwards or in downwards. They have only one particular direction. We will study about both of them in much detail, starting with growth independent movement, as we have seen in the touch me not plant. So this I told you that like animals, plants do not have any nervous system or muscular system to control their movements. Instead they have specialized proteins which are found in the animals. Instead of the specialized proteins which are found in the animal cells, plant cells have different mechanisms. So how are these growth independent movements occurring? There is no brain which is sending signals, or there are no muscle tissues which have any receptors or anything. So what is happening is there is change in shape. How is there a change in shape? By swelling or shrinking of cell. Now whenever the cell is swelling or shrinking, this means that there is a change in the water amount. That could be the only possible reason why a cell shrinks or swells. If water rushes in, the cell swells, the water rushes out, the cell shrinks. So due to the change in the amount of water in a cell, there is shrinking or swelling of a cell, which causes the change in shape of the cell, resulting in growth independent movement, which are also called as nastic movements. These movements are seen in touch me not plant, as you have seen, as I have explained you earlier in this image also. So what is happening? There is simply just a change of shape is happening due to the movement of water molecules inside or outside the cell. These movements are also called nastic movements, and you can see they are so fast. Just by some external stimuli, which is the touch here, these movements are occurring. So these were the growth independent movements which do not require, or which are not occurring due to growth. The reason behind them is not growth. The reason is some external stimuli is triggering them to occur. Next, coming to growth dependent movements. These movements are being triggered by growth of the plant. These movements are also called tropic movements, and they are comparatively slower than growth independent movements. You could say that growth independent movements were occurring immediately. As soon as someone was touching the touch me not plant, it was immediately folding and drooping. But in case of growth dependent movements, slowly and steadily as the plant is growing, the movements are occurring. They are not occurring immediately. So they are slower movements, and they are also called tropic movements. These are directional movements, and these are basically responsible due to the growth of a plant and due to some external stimuli. What is this external stimuli over here? So these movements are affected by some external stimulus as well. For example, light, water, gravity, or chemicals. These are some things which stimulate such movements as well. Basically, the reason behind them is growth. The plant is growing, the movement is occurring, but the movements are also stimulated by some stimulus. We will see them in detail ahead, but before that, let's understand what is positive tropism and what is negative tropism. If I have something which is stimulating that growth, if the plant grows towards the stimulus, the tropic movement is said to be positive tropism. If the plant grows away from the stimulus, the tropic movement is said to be negative tropism. Now we will see what do I mean by this, starting with phototropism. So tropic movements are of the given 4 types based on the stimulus. So what do I mean by stimulus? You will see here, you will understand that better. Phototropism. Photo means sunlight. This movement occurs as a response to light. Whenever there is sunlight, such movements are seen. So here we have the sun which is sending some light to the plant. Due to this light, the plant is growing and there is movement in the plant. Now the movement can be positive and the movement can be negative. Positive movement means that the movement in direction of the stimulus. Here the stimulus is the light. Stimulus means due to something which is stimulating or triggering the response. So here light is triggering the response, which is growth here. So light is the stimulus and response is the growth. So growth is occurring due to light. So in positive tropism, the growth will occur towards the stimulus, that is towards the light. So in shoots, you can see the shoots always bend towards the light, whereas roots bend away from the light. In this diagram you can see that very well. The shoots which are growing are bending towards the sun, they are bending towards the sun, or they are bending in direction of the light, whereas the roots you can see are bending in opposite direction to the light. So the roots are showing negative tropism and the shoots are showing positive phototropism over here. So this is what I meant by positive tropism and negative tropism, and what I meant by stimulus, which I was explaining earlier. So the first type is phototropism, which occurs as a response to light. You can understand that by the word photo. Positive phototropism is when the plant grows in direction of the light, and negative is when the plant grows in opposite direction to the light, which is shown by the root system. The next type of tropism which we have is geotropism. What happens in geotropism? Let's see. Geotropism is the tropic movement which occurs as a result of gravity or the pull of earth. We all know what gravity is. So the growth of plant due to gravity, that is geotropism. If gravity is affecting the growth of the plant, you can see the shoots of the plant always grow upwards, that is in opposite direction to gravity, gravitational pull. So this is the earth basically, if I imagine, and the gravitational pull is always downwards. Now you can see the growth of the plant, the growth of the shoot is in opposite direction, that is it is upwards, it is in opposite direction to the gravitational pull. So this type of tropic movement is called negative geotropic movement or negative geotropism, which is shown by the shoots. Then what is an example of the positive geotropism, which is shown by the roots? Roots grow in the direction of gravity, that is they grow downwards. So they show positive geotropism. Positive geotropism is shown by the roots and negative geotropism is shown by the shoots. Geotropism, I am explaining again, the tropic movement which is occurring as a response to gravity. Gravity is affecting the movement or the growth of the plant, that is geotropism. It can be positive and it can be negative. Then we have hydrotropism. So what is hydrotropism? Hydro, as the word explains, hydro means water. So the tropism or the growth which is being affected by water. So wherever water is, if the plant is moving towards water, it means it is showing positive hydrotropism. If the plant is moving away from water, it is showing negative hydrotropism. Let's see the example of positive hydrotropism. Roots grow always towards the moist soil. You can see here the soil is moist, the roots are growing downwards. In this side the soil is dry, the roots are not growing here. Instead the roots are bending towards where water is. So roots are showing positive hydrotropism, that is roots are showing movements in the direction of water. What is negative hydrotropism? That is against the direction of water, which is shown by the shoots. Shoots always grow upwards. Even if the water content over here is very high, still the shoots are not bending towards the soil to get water. Shoots are still growing against the direction of water in the soil, hence they are showing negative hydrotropism. The next which we have is chemotropism. Here again, if we break the word, chemo means chemical. Chemo is representing chemical over here. So tropic movements which are occurring or which are being stimulated by chemicals constitute chemotropism. So it is the movement of the part of plant due to some chemical. Now what is the example of this? So positive chemotropism we can see due to the growth of pollen tubes. So what happens whenever we have pollination which is occurring? So we know that a pollen grain comes, and so this is the female part of the plant, which is called the carpel or the pistil. Then a pollen grain comes and it attaches over here on the stigma of the flower. Then from this pollen grain a pollen tube arises and it starts moving down the style towards the ovary and then towards the ovule. Now how does it move towards the ovule? Because ovule over here is secreting some chemical, and this pollen tube is being attracted or is moving towards that chemical which is being produced by the ovule. So we can say that the pollen tube is showing positive chemotropism and is moving towards a chemical which is being produced by the ovule. Next is negative chemotropism, and it is shown by various plant roots. Considering this is a root which is growing somewhat like this, but here if it encounters some chemicals, so the root diverges its path and changes its direction in order to avoid this harmful acid. So roots are showing negative chemotropism, that is they are moving away from a chemical which is a potential harmful acid for them. So this is how positive and negative chemotropisms occur. Now we have seen 4 types of different tropic movements. We started with phototropism, then we moved ahead with geotropism, hydrotropism which is due to water, and chemotropism which is due to some chemical. Moving ahead with plant hormones. So as we know that hormones are chemical substances which are also seen in animals, we also have some plant hormones which are again chemical substances which are found in the plants. Now what is the function of these hormones? So these hormones coordinate the growth, development and response to the environment in plants. So they are responsible for all the control and coordination in plants. Plants do not have a nervous system, but they do have some hormones. Again, like other hormones, they are synthesized at a place which is away from the place of action. Then through conduction they are transported from one place to the place where they have to act. So area of action to area of action they are transported. Now here we have 4 different types of hormones which are commonly seen in plants. So you need to know the names of these hormones and their important functions. So first we have is auxins. Auxins are a type of plant hormone which promote growth of plants. So the plant growth is promoted by auxins. The growth is stimulated by some type of stimulus which we have seen, the tropic movements, but the hormone promoting growth, the hormone by which the plant can grow, is auxins. Then we have gibberellins. Gibberellins help in the growth of the stem. So the thickening of the stem, the extending of the stem, all this are coordinated by the gibberellins. Then we have the cytokinins. Cytokinins promote cell division. So if they promote cell division, so they are present in larger concentration or in abundance in those areas which have rapid cell division, which undergo a lot of cell division, like fruits. So fruits and seeds undergo a lot of cell division, hence they have a large amount of gibberellins present in them because the cytokinins, because the cytokinins are promoting cell division, hence they are present in greater concentration in the areas of rapid cell division like the fruits and seeds which we have. Then we have the abscisic acid. Now all these 3 of hormones, the auxins, gibberellins and cytokinins, are promoting growth. All these are promoting growth. So the plant cannot grow endlessly, the growth has to be stopped as well after some time. So abscisic acid acts as a growth inhibitor. It stops the growth and it induces wilting of leaves or leaf fall. So the senescence, the old age in plant is kind of induced by abscisic acid, as it is a growth inhibitor and it causes falling of leaf as well. So these are the 4 different kinds of growth hormones which we have, and now we have covered the entire chapter. We started with nervous system in animals, control and coordination in animals, then we did nervous system, neurons, the endocrine system, then we moved on to control and coordination in plants as well. So we have seen how plants control and coordinate, what is their mode of action, different types of tropic movements, other nastic movements also we have seen, and we have seen 4 different types of plants hormones as well. So we have covered this chapter completely in 2 parts. If you have not seen the first part, please do check it out. And this is all for this chapter. Thank you so much for being with me. All these notes are available in the description section, and for more content you can always visit our website studifysuccess.com. Thank you so much.